back to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. It's Power Talk Friday. A couple of weeks ago, my friend Sandra Funk was here talking about the interior design standard and how to have a millionaire mindset and how to break out of fear mode. We know that Sandra gets it. We know that she understands that mindset is important, and so does today's guest, Janine Aurichio. Janine is a certified life coach, mental fitness coach, speaker, and founder of Yes to Yum Lifestyling. Now, I have been getting questions lately on what's up with the focus on wealth and health together. So you know that we're doing Luann Live November 2023, and it's called Health and Wealth, a well-designed business within a well-designed life. And some have been asking, what's the health part all of a sudden? Well, I would tell you that it has been part of this podcast and this platform from the beginning. Conversations like the one with Sandra and today with Janine, going all the way back to the beginning. Episodes with Jan Bowen on cultivating your intuition. Alex Gourlay, who discussed overcoming personal limiting belief systems and how it changed her business when she did that. Leah Maya Perez, who talked about her struggle with depression and having to get up and go to client consultations and dealing with it. And then, of course, there was Wendy Glaser, who discussed her triumph over domestic abuse and how when she turned the corner, every part of her life clicked, including her business. Many of these episodes have been on the show from the very beginning because I know being healthy in body and mind are undeniably entwined. And they are undeniably entwined with creating and managing a successful business. Taking care of the mind and not the body, or taking care of the business and not the mind or the body, well, it just will not work. You will not be in your best position to be successful. Now, on Instagram over the last month, I've been sharing my health journey leading up to Luann Live. I have drawn the line in the sand to take care of my physical body and mind before I work each day. I had, over the last 7 years of doing this podcast, developed a habit of basically waking up and going right to work, literally turning my computer on and beginning work. And what happened was my daily routine of exercising in the morning for almost 30 years went right by the wayside, okay? And what I've learned is when my physical body is firing on all cylinders, then my mind follows. And then there comes all the things in business that I want to do as well, because I have the energy, the creativity, and the headspace to get it all done. And so I have made a commitment that I am turning a corner. And for 1 month, sometimes it's only 8 minutes and sometimes it's an hour and a half. But I am not working before I nourish myself and I move my body. And so this is a shift for me. It's a shift to who I used to be, but I'm telling you, it's not easy making this transition back because, of course, my head is racing with all the things to do every single day of the week. And guess what? I love doing them. That's the thing. So conversations on mindset, on self-development, on overcoming personal challenges have been a part of the podcast from the very beginning. And all the differences is now we're going to talk about it together in person. So I encourage you to go to luannlive.com to learn more and join me. I think the timing is perfect. November, so that when you leave in November, you have the last 6 weeks of the year to make your plan, to dream about the strategy for 2024 so that you can make the next year the best year for both your mind and body. Okay, go to luannlive.com to learn more. Now, Janine gets into this too, okay? Janine coaches design professionals like you on what she calls the inside job, which creates the mindset and mental fitness needed to run your business with clarity, purpose, and ease. She uses her signature lifestyling approach, and she helps her clients go from stress and overwhelm to calm, clear, and creative. Sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? Right. And I am, as I mentioned, bonus point, she is a former interior designer herself. Janine is here to teach us that until we do the inner work of managing our mind, we will not reach our highest levels of performance with lasting peace of mind. And the best part, she actually has tools to help us do this work. I love that part. So I'm very excited to share Janine with you. Hey, Janine, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, Luann. It is a thrill to be here.
So I'm loving this whole little, dynamic that's happening. Here you are, currently a life and business coach, but come from being an interior designer and working in the industry for years. And so I love this intersection. It reminds me of Desi Creswell. She was also an interior designer and became a life and a business coach because it gives you do have, just a little different perspective and insight as to really the chaos that happens in a designer's day, week, month, year, right?
Yep.
And the thing about it is what you said in your intake form to me, I love the way you coined it, that we are all walking around with the inner sage and the inner saboteur in our mind. And I thought, isn't that just a great way to say the stories in our head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so talk to me a little bit about that, Janine, the inner sage and the inner saboteur, and what have you learned and what do you go through with your coaching with interior designers?
Absolutely. So being human is hard, right? The human condition can be challenging. Part of that is because our brains are wired for negativity 3-to-1. It's called the negativity bias. And that was for survival reasons. When our species was developing, it was way more important for us to remember the color of the poisonous frog or the poisonous mushroom versus the color of the pretty butterfly. So we are always scanning the environment for what's potentially a threat, harmful, dangerous, etc. And so that's the saboteurs. That's one side of our brain going on, the survival brain you've probably heard about. We've also got this wonderful, calm, creative, loving part of our brain that we'll call the sage, that that is the complete opposite of the saboteurs. It is motivated by love. The voice is very quiet, so we have to quiet down those saboteurs. And it's got much more of a pull energy, or like an attraction, versus these saboteurs, which are pushing. And so pretty much everyone in, I think, our society, I can't speak for the entire world, but we've been groomed to listen to those fear-based voices and push. And we all have that negativity bias. And so yes, those are the voices inside that talk to us. They have negative thoughts like, oh, this is bad, or oh, you can't do that, or oh, I shouldn't do that, or oh, this person is dangerous. And then they also have emotions that go with it, and it's usually things like stress and anxiety and disappointment and regret and blame and shame and what we'll call negative emotions. That's all coming from that survival brain. And so what I try to do for people, and I do this work myself because I'm human and I'm also struggle with this stuff, is to teach them a process for catching those voices, quieting them down, and accessing that sage more, so that on balance, we can be more in a positive space and respond to things rather than reacting.
I'm racking my brain. Uh, in the last 4 days, I have heard that same sentence recently. I don't know which podcast I was listening to. I don't know what it was, but it was some out of industry podcast. And it literally was that same negative bias, that we are wired from negative bias. And the thing about it is, Janine, you know how you always have to hear things multiple times, multiple ways for it to make an impact on you? I don't know that I would have consciously recalled that I just heard that, but I did just hear it. And when you said it, I was like, oh, that's crazy. And I went, wait a minute, I just learned that. So that is nutso to me, but I get the logic of it, right? Like if you're, I guess what it is so nutso to me is that how many, I don't know, is it hundreds of thousands? You have no idea. And I'm not an anthropologist, right? But how that, I get it served us at caveman level, how it's still in us. It's like so nuts, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we no longer need to, be afraid of the tiger jumping out of the bushes. But and I can't speak to this either because I'm not a biologist or a neuroscientist, but our brains have kept that wiring. And, we need to be discerning, and it's good to be aware of your surroundings and recognize true threats. But
Right.
what the saboteurs do is take it to an extreme. It's like putting kerosene on, what may be a little threat or a little danger or a little like, uh-oh. The fear brain puts the kerosene on it, and woof, then you've got a full-blown forest fire. And
Yeah. And let me ask you a question.
sure.
And you might say, you know what? Like I just told you, Lou, I'm not a biologist or a scientist here, but are you aware of like, is there percentages of like, is it also like environmental? So it's absolutely in our brain to have negative bias, but then like I just know that I'm distinctly, typically a more positive person. And so is that come from your environment where the saboteur within you has less of a, like the voice is lower? I'm not going to, I am a human. I have them too. I'm not going to say it's not there, but is the volume of it come from your experience and your upbringing? Or is that just random? Like, hey, you got brown hair and you got less negativity bias. Like, do you know anything about that?
To the extent of my understanding, we are born with this in us. And yes, can circumstances, environment, add to it or detract from it? Yes. And that's kind of the extent of my knowledge. But really,
Yeah.
we all kind of
Yes.
suffer with it.
Right. It's in there. It's in there. It's part of all of us. Interesting. And so, it's funny because I've designers that have coached with me and window treatment professionals that have coached with me, they know that we often have this conversation of, you have a story in your head about this. Right. And here's the story. The story is that, blah, blah, blah. Like if I do this, this is going to happen. I'm like, but here's the thing. How about this story? Like, if you do this, then this will happen. And I said, and what makes one story more valid, more believable? This is literally your thought process. You're the one with the story. This is not a fact. Right. And so that is the thing that I find that, to me, it's just, it's kind of like my feeling on aliens. This is like going off on a deep tangent.
Okay,
Okay.
let's do it.
But like, I don't study anything having to do with space. I don't know a darn thing about it, okay? But it is just illogical to me to think that the Earth is the only planet in the multiple solar systems, in the multiple galaxies that has life on it. It's just so egocentric of a thought that my brain, I can't even have a debate about it because I'm just like, it's, I can't even imagine it not being possible. It's almost like when you are on trial, you have to be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. You'll never be able to prove to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's possible that there's life. Okay. Now, do they have, heads that are 20 feet long and bodies that are a foot long? I don't know. I don't care. But so to me, it's the same thing with this story in your head. It's, the story is made up. So why do we sometimes put too much emphasis on it? And what you're saying is one part of it is this wiring of negative bias. What else happens, Janine, that we do, that we will indulge in this story that's not the good story but the bad story?
Well, it's it's kind of it like feeds on itself, right? It's sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy. So the first saboteur that usually pops up is the judge, and the judge sets off the alarms of saying, "Ooh, this is bad, bad, bad," and causes most of our stress. And either I'm bad, you're bad, or the circumstance is bad. The judge is like responsible for imposter syndrome. It's that inner critic, right? And you better believe that as I was sitting here waiting for you, my little judge was popping up. I call her Cruella, saying, "Oh, well, why are you on this podcast? You're not, blah, 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 blah." So that, unconsciously, and we're not responsible for that first thought, but this whole idea is of this practice is to try to catch that first thought so that we can do something about the next one. Because otherwise it's like off to the races. And, I'm not sure why it is. You can liken it to like putting your hand on a hot stove. Like, you want to feel that pain because you're going to pull your hand away. But with these negative emotions, we tend to like just put our hand on there and stay there, right? We kind of
Oh,
grind
right.
on it. The mind gets going and the stinking thinking. It's it's almost like confirmation bias. It's confirming the fear-based thought and running with it. So we actually have to um, be able to build up it's like mental muscle strength. Like I talk
Mm,
about mental fitness as part of this framework called positive intelligence. And this mental muscle strength is what allows us to catch ourselves when, like, oh, there's that judge telling me I'm not good enough again, or oop, there's my controller trying to control things again, so that we can
okay.
shift to um, a different perspective. And with
Right.
this framework, and the sage knows that any situation or circumstance can be turned into a gift or an opportunity. So that's sort of the crux of the whole thing, is like, oh, okay, this might seem bad. I just lost a client. Oops, this is bad. But oh, I can turn this in somehow. This can be turned into a gift or opportunity. And that's where the agency comes in with us. That's where we take our power back to shift to more positivity.
I love this whole description and discussion on this because um, I've said it 1,000 times on the podcast. I love that when I learn when I do something and there's a thing about doing it, like it has like it's called something or whatever. Because I would tell you, my Aunt Honey and my mother, I talk about them all the time.
Hmm.
They taught me from a young age, all of us kids, is this seems hard right now. This is difficult. You don't like what's happening, blah, blah, blah. But what's the lesson in it?
Hmm.
And the thing about what I just heard, what you said is that negative bias emotion or thought is going to show up. But the idea and the practice is to quickly grab it and turn the perspective on it rather than keep leaning your hand on the hot stove and dwelling in it.
Yes.
And that is the exact mechanism that they have taught us kids. Okay, that happened. Okay, let's keep going now. Keep
Hmm.
it moving. And of course, I've always likened it to tough talk and big girl panties and all of the things. But I think at its core, it's sort of what you're talking about with this. So go through this. So this is this positive intelligence framework
Yes.
that you talk about. I love this. So it's going to give us strategies to, because we're all, what you're saying is, and I don't think anybody listening is saying, not me, I never have sabotaging thoughts.
Right. I'm not lying
Like,
awake at 3 a.m. with worrying.
yes, that's right. Like we've all done it. We've all been there. And I think what I'm hearing is it's to the extent that it cripples us, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mean, like, does it's the extent of, does it take over an hour and we lose an hour? Does it take over a day? Does it take over a week? Any one of those could be unacceptable at any moment to any of us.
Hmm.
But that's the thing. It's going to happen. It's how do we handle it when it happens is your whole point, right?
Yes. Yes. And I should say, or want to
Okay.
say that the impact of these characters, it affects everything. So I'll take a little
Mm,
tiny step back for a second. So yes, positive intelligence is this framework created by a gentleman named Shirzad Shamin. And I've studied it, I practice it, and I teach it now. And they took the latest findings from neuroscience, positive psychology, cognitive behavioral psychology, and performance science with over 500,000 subjects and boiled things down to their very root essence, um, which makes it very simple and gets to the core instead of like treating the symptoms. We're dealing with the core, and this is why it applies kind of to everyone. um, they've studied people all over the world, so it's not just a cultural thing. When you boil these things down, the impact of these saboteurs, it impacts our performance, it impacts our relationships, and it impacts our overall happiness or satisfaction, our overall well-being. And I think why that's important with my clients, I talk a lot about prosperity. And to me, that is both the physical results we want plus the lasting peace of mind or peace of heart or
mm,
happiness or ease. I hear ease a lot from my clients.
mm,
And um, I wanted to share that with especially designers who are bringing all this beauty into the world, because I know what a chaotic, complex business it can be. And so, yes, we want you to have the successful business. And as we talked about, you need those processes and all the amazing things that your guests share with your listeners. And if you want to reach your highest levels of performance with that lasting peace of mind, you've got to deal with this inside stuff.
mm, mhm. Okay. So what you're basically saying is we want to deal with it because we want a positive outcome in our everyday life. We want the voices in our head to be pleasant as opposed to unpleasant, but it also impacts us in other ways, physiologically, stress, all the things. I'm sure it raises our cortisol, all the crappy stuff, right?
Absolutely. It keeps us up at night, and then it's no good when you can't sleep. And then we make poor choices about diet and on and on.
Right?
Or I
Okay.
do anyway.
So well, yeah, no, right? That's the thing. That's why it's called comfort food.
Right.
Like, let's be serious. It's not called you feel strong and ready to
Right.
hit the world food. It's called give me those fries and make them Jersey style with gravy and cheese.
I miss that.
I know, right? Okay, so you work with this framework called positive intelligence, and this is like the steps that we can engage and we can activate in our brain, and when we first have those saboteur thoughts coming through, Janine.
Correct. Yes. Intercepting the saboteurs is kind of the first muscle, if you will. The second muscle is that sage perspective I talked about of um, accessing and believing that, oh, there is a opportunity or a gift here. And I do want to say it also depends on the severity of what's coming at us. Like if life's just throwing at us
Mm,
some little annoyance, like, oh, my Wi-Fi is out, we can quickly think about like, oh, this gives me time to do some writing I wanted to do, or, I don't know, clean the kitchen, something. If
right,
when it's
right. Get the laundry done.
they'll get the laundry done. But the bigger the challenge coming at us, we might need some time and space to get that perspective of, oh, there's a gift here, right? So that I
Right,
just do
right.
want to say that it's not like this Pollyanna, like, oh, my house just burnt down and oh, where's the gift? Like, No.
Right.
Right.
I'll get new furniture.
Okay, right. So there's intercepting those
Not
saboteurs.
really caring at that moment.
Assuming that, getting in that mindset, at least knowing like, oh, I don't see the gift now, but I know that there will be eventually.
Right.
And then the last thing is actually it's a practice of doing very simple exercises where you just focus really intensely on a single physical sensation. And that is what actually has proven to shift the neural pathways to allow you to take um, the more positive stance and to get you into
Mm.
that sage part of your brain. And they showed this on functional MRI machines, actually, that different parts of your brain lit up when you were in saboteur mode and then when you did these simple exercises. And this is how we quiet that survival brain. And it is a practice. Like, I don't know, if you've ever been to a workshop or read a self-help book where you're like, wow, this is like the best idea ever. This is going to change my life. And a week later or a month later or 6 months later, it's like, what was that?
Right. Right.
That's the insight. The insight is important to learn this stuff and like what you and I are talking about. And then really where the rubber meets the road is that this is a daily practice, almost like going to the gym or brushing your teeth, that you need to do these simple exercises every day throughout your day to build up that muscle so that you can more quickly shift to the sage perspective. And
Okay.
it probably wouldn't be very interesting on audio to walk your audience through what these exercises are, but just to give you an idea, it might be, getting quiet and just focusing in on your sense of hearing and listening for the farthest away sound you can hear, or
Mm.
listening to the closest sound you can hear, just really keying in on your hearing, or really just listening to your breathing, or watching, witnessing your chest or stomach rise as you're breathing. Noticing the temperature of air, the difference when you inhale versus when you exhale. Or even there's one of just rubbing two fingers together with so much focus that you can feel the ridges, like your fingerprint on both fingers.
Mm.
And that simple, right? All of this is very simple and profound, but not always easy, especially when we're in
Mm.
the middle of our crazy day and, you find out your shipment is late and they're calling from the job site and, this is going wrong and you've got to, you're already 10 minutes late for your next meeting. And that's when the saboteurs are whipped up. And that,
Mm.
ironically, or maybe not coincidentally, is when the most important time of when we need to be like getting quiet and going into these physical sensations so we can shut off the chatter.
So those are the 3 steps? Is there another step before I start asking you
There,
about these
the,
steps?
there is the last step is actually once you've assumed the sage perspective and activated your sage brain a little bit, is to then generate the gift. That's when you can
Okay.
have a clear head to be like, okay, where might there be a gift of knowledge here that there's something I can learn or a knowledge I can apply to this problem that will help me in the future? Is there are 5 sage powers that we can talk about if we have time, but can I apply one of the sage powers to this and grow that power in me so that I will be even stronger next time this sort of thing comes up? So the last step is creating the gift.
Okay. So if we go back to the first step is intercepting the saboteur thought,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, to your point, there are all different levels that this can be engaged, like all different problems, all different levels of problems that this can be engaged in the use of. So one is I just got the phone call, I'm on site, and the delivery truck broke down 15 miles out, and we're not getting the entire house full of furniture on time.
Right.
So that's one. And then another is, maybe something way, way more serious having to do with your personal, the personal health or safety or health of your friends or family or children or whatever.
Right.
So there's different levels here, right? But the idea is that no matter what the level, it's what you're saying is grab that thought.
Mhm.
Just and so are we grabbing the thought of that happened? So, like, the truck is broken down 15 miles out. Are we just grabbing the thought of this is upsetting and this is going, my client is going to be pissed? Or are
Mhm.
we grabbing the thought of, and then the entire project is going to go off the rails?
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter. Just grab the first negative
We
thing that we hear and feel
we may not
in
catch
our
we
head.
may not catch that first one, right? Like the alarms go off like this is bad. And depending on what other accomplice saboteurs you have, your controller might jump in or your victim might jump in or the avoider might jump in, but um
Oh,
yes, it will if
ah,
not intercepted, it will definitely go down that, oh, the truck is, stuck. This is bad. My client's going to hate me. I'm going to get fired. I'm never going to get a project again. I'm going to go out of business. I'm going to be homeless. Blah, blah, blah.
yeah, that's a pretty
So,
crazy hairy path right
yes,
there from the truck breaking down, I was gonna say.
exactly. And so those exercises I talked about are what we can do to build up the strength to catch ourselves quicker. So wherever, yes, you want to catch that negative thought or feeling too. There's often feelings that go along with each saboteur. Like with the judge, it's stress. Um,
Hmm,
with the stickler, which I have high stickler, it's anxiety. Same with the controller, or the controller is a lot of times is also like disappointed and grumpy. um the hypervigilant person is kind of nervous. So each of the accomplice saboteurs come with a feeling. So whether you catch yourself like, oh, I've got that icky anxiety feeling again, or oh, I'm thinking this is bad and I've got this fear-based thought that my life is going to end. um
mhm,
and there
okay.
is, like, I put my clients go through a training program. So this isn't just me talking about it. There's actually a program that you go through that can train you in all these things that we're talking about: intercepting the saboteurs, accepting that sage perspective, and then creating the gift. It's
So I think that makes more sense. So, like, if we it's what's funny is I often talk about, like, when I'm teaching a workshop or having a conversation about sales and about negotiation, with Exciting Windows, every fourth Thursday, I'm teaching some workshop on sales or negotiation.